Okay, so I think we can start already. And our presentation today is about something that you can gain thanks to Composer and how it can help you to speed up development. So first of all, let me briefly introduce myself and our team. I was working in Magento since 2007, involved into Magento core development at the early stage of the project. Then later I was working in professional services department. Main responsibilities were implementation of Magento solutions following customer business requirements, integration with third-party systems, proprietary solutions like ERP system, order fulfillment systems, CRM systems, and so on. And also I was managing one of the first Magento projects in general. And in March 2011, I left Magento and together with two other co-founders established own agency, Eltrino. And that's a company with the main focus on Magento implementations and different solutions around the platform. So we serve different B2C and B2B web stores on Magento and deliver different front-end, back-end development, and some integrations, functional improvements, modules, and so on and so on and so on. And also we are working on new open source customer care solution, Diamante Desk. And last year we won Magento 2 extension challenge. And currently we are working on a few Magento 2 projects on Magento 2 platform. And basically, during that time, we got some experience working with Magento 2, and that's some knowledge that I'd like to share because that stuff could be interesting to you. And so as I mentioned, we'll check today how to save time and development efforts developing on Magento 2. Well, basically, some magic and nothing else. Let's discuss today following agenda topics. So typical issues in Magento 2 that can be solved by Composer. Then also we'll cover magic of Magento Composer installer component. Of course, I'd like also to show some real-life example of implementation of third-party libraries using Composer and how to connect them to Magento 2. So how to create new module, and also discuss backend validation and some conclusions at the end. So what is Composer in general? So probably most of you know, but just to give you some background, that's in general a dependency manager for PHP. And it allows you to declare libraries that your project depends on. And it will help to manage them, upgrade, install, maintain up-to-date versions for you. So you won't need to really spend any efforts making sure that all components of your project are up-to-date. And also sometimes it's called library manager, and that's also true. So in general, Composer is library manager. But for specific project, it's still more acting like a dependency manager. And with Composer, a new era of developers' laziness is coming. So now it's not compiling, it's composering. So what typical issues can be solved by Composer? And nowadays, there are a lot of different solutions that can be implemented with Composer. And you don't need to invent a bicycle, you just need to start using it. And Composer will help to download and update third-party libraries. So it's stored in Magento in vendor and lib folders. So it will check versions and help you in general to make sure that all that you have together working without conflicts and so on. And another very good advantage that Composer gives you and in general positively improves performance of Magento. That's generation of afterload PHP file. So basically, based on all composer JSON and all dependencies declared in configuration of your project, it generates a class map and creates autoload file for the project. So in Magento 1, it was done in real time, and in Magento 2, it's pre-generated, and also thanks to Composer for that. And Magento 2 and Composer combination features. So what do we get from that combination? So one of the most important features is set of autoload capabilities for libraries that essentially simplifies the usage of third-party software solutions. Composer here provides the ability to use third-party libraries while you don't have to bundle them with source code of Magento 2, so they are like kind of standalone, but you are using them and you don't need to embed code of those libraries into Magento core or as part of your module. Also, it offers component-based architecture as well as reliable dependency management. It reduces extension conflicts and compatibility issues. It streamlines your work with versioned dependencies. It introduces semantic versioning, supports some useful standards such as PHP framework interoperability, and also thanks to Composer, once again, Magento 2 uses Symfony components, and those two very important, that Symfony console and even dispatchers. That's really good advantage too. So in general, what can you do with Magento 2 and Composer? So first of all, you can easily install Magento 2 using Composer. So if you haven't done it yet, that's definitely magic sign to give it a try. And second part, that with Composer you can install third-party libraries. I mentioned it already, but it's worth to repeat. And in general, there are two ways in Magento 2 to install extensions. So way number one, that's old school basically. You can download that third-party library and handle everything manually. So you can copy code, doing other required actions. Or second way, that's to use special official Magento plugin, Magento Composer installer. Basically, second way is way more interesting, and that's definitely I'd like to tell you more about that solution. And it really allows you to spend less time and with just one line of code connect your module, that library with your model and with Magento 2. And basically, all you need to do that's just type in the name into Composer, and yeah, it will transfer and install it for you. So yeah, when you compare Magento 2 and Magento 1, that's really, you can notice that Magento 1 has relatively inflexible structure. And moving from Magento 1 to Magento 2 is like a fall of Berlin Wall back in 1989, where Pink Floyd gave their famous concert. So that's why that's the wall on that slide. And in general, Magento 1 was like a monolith structure, so where modules just like another brick in the wall, and they're connected closely together. And in Magento 2, all modules are separated. So basically, they're independent, like bricks of broken wall. And there are, of course, some dependencies, and those exceptions exist. So if you define something in configuration that one module depends on another, so they work just together, that's clear. But in general, Composer helps to break that wall too. And I repeat it once again, that thanks to Composer, you can create custom Magento configuration and throw away unnecessary modules and install third-party libraries. So all files related to modules, even templates, are placed inside the corresponding module now. That's also a good advantage and really handy that you have everything inside and in one place. And basically, everything that you have to do is just include Composer in Magento configuration, and that's your first step to go. So yeah, here some things that might be handy for you. So in Composer.json, there is no type. We will check it on next slides, but just to give you a background, so there are different types of packages supported, and basically depending on type of package, code will be inserted in different place in Magento. So for Magento 2 modules, that code will be inserted in app code. For theme, it will be app design. For language, it will be app/i18n. For libraries, that's in lib internal, and for Magento 2 Composer, code will be inserted just in root of Magento installation. So depending on what kind of module you would like to develop, you need to pay attention to the type and use it. Yeah, next is about security. Well, in reality, it's a bit different to what you might think first, but in reality, Composer works more or less like security in the shopping mall or at nightclub, and it performs all security and voice control checks for you. So what in general it means? So Composer just verifies that the system, PHP version, Magento version, all other components suitable for the installation of that library. And if there are some conflicts, and if any component of the system doesn't meet requirements, Composer will recommend to update that component. And it won't Magento or Magento module to install, depending on what you install in using Composer. And previously, those checks were performed by Magento core. Now, Composer is doing that. So, for example, a very good idea what it means could be, so when you create new module, and that module is just addressing some specific stuff of some specific Magento version, let's say 201, and basically you put that in configuration, that module works just with that version. Composer will check, and if someone will try to install that module on earlier or later version, it just won't let it install. So basically, Composer will take care about compatibility questions. So next, let's see how to install module using Composer. So you put in a command line, yeah, so Composer requires an name of the module and its version, and basically it will be installed. So that's it, so very easy. And if you omit version, so you can omit it, then in that case, Composer will take the latest, but it will also check compatibility. So it will take the latest compatible, which is a good thing for you too. Okay, so, but there are some tricks, and you need to know some magic secrets here. Well, in reality, no rocket science, but still. So what configuration you need to run Magic and Magento Composer installer installs your new module? So you need to pay attention to type. As I already mentioned on one slide, so there are different types. So in our case, example, we will use Google reCAPTCHA as example, implementation of reCAPTCHA on contact form. So it will be Magento 2 module. And then you put some description, requirements, version of the module, license, and also very important part is in extra. So here you put basically a map and define a folder where it will go to. That's really important part. Let's look into more details to Google reCAPTCHA example and implementation of that third-party library into Magento. So first of all, yeah, pay attention to packages. So probably most of you know about that, but in reality, that store with all that magic stuff that you can download, all the libraries. So before developing something, you should probably first check if something similar to what you'd like to develop exists there, and maybe it's just worth starting using it instead of developing from scratch. So you can find there all third-party libraries that's suitable and works with Composer. And you can easily implement them into your project too. So for example, in our case, we need reCAPTCHA. We searched and found 100 reCAPTCHA modules there. But of course, we decided to use official that developed by Google and install it. So as a result, we just get that module into our Magento, and for that, we just execute one command, Composer require Google/reCAPTCHA. And that's installing a library into our system. So a bit step back in regards to general complications when you are creating Magento 2 modules. So there are different ways, so you can build structure of the module from scratch. Of course, it's not significant efforts when developing, but still it's making your life easier, so I feel that it's worth highlighting. Then you can use also simple modules, but that's a bit deprecated way. What we recommend is to use IHB module creator module. There are different other modules similar available as well, and that module actually it helps to create samples or skeletons of modules. So basically, we will check it on the next slide. So. Basically, it's simple way to create Magento 2 modules. And to install it, you just need to add the repository URL to the root composer.json file. And then basically just execute composer require IHB module created the master. And that way, it's installing, then you do upgrade, and you have that module. Also, how to use that. So to use, it's also very simple. So when it's activated, you're just running that command, and module structure is created in the app code vendor module folder. So in reality, what you put here, you see here. That's it. So in reality, it's creating a full module structure for you. So then you get something like that. So you have to remove what you don't need, and at the end, you really leave and have what's required for your new implementation. You might need to rename something or remove, but in general, everything that you might need, you will have. So when we have got ready module, we need to, of course, to include output of reCAPTCHA in our contact form, and for that we are creating some layouts and defining template that will output that reCAPTCHA stuff immediately after contact form. And template itself you can find on GitHub or official Google reCAPTCHA site, basically. So what you need, that's to define in XML and also template itself. So basically quite easy. After that, we already have reCAPTCHA in contact form. So it's there, but of course it's not validated yet. So visually it exists, but in reality it's not working. So to make it all work together, and we need, of course, to add backend validation. And validate before saving contact form data or processing contact form data. We need to validate that CAPTCHA actually gave positive results. And for that, we create a pre-dispatch observer. And we observe event that's working before contact form is submitted. And basically, we declare our actions that will process that. Here also I'd like to highlight one important point related to differences of observers in Magento 1 and Magento 2, because there are some quite important things. And of course, majority of stuff is the same, so mechanic remains the same. But now observers are in their own classes. So you no longer have entire observer class that holds all observer code, so it's separate classes. Then also observers located in their own folder. So you don't need to put observers into model form folder anymore. They're located in observer folder of your module. Then also observer XML stuff located in the events XML file. So, and in general, that's common trend among Magento 2 is to separate all XML according to functional destiny. So it means that all XML is separated according to their purposes, and events are going into their own XML file now. So, next point, that observers in Magento 2 are using Symfony Event Dispatcher that I mentioned that it's already in Magento 2 and they're using it. Then separation by area is done by placing event XML file into a specific folder. So for example, etc. event XML for all areas, etc. frontend event XML for the frontend, etc. admin HTML events XML for the backend, and so on. And in general, in Magento 2, there are less observers, less events in the code, and alongside with events, so-called plugins are also introduced and used in Magento 2. So about validation itself. So our validation for reCAPTCHA looks just like that. So it's really small piece that's validating reCAPTCHA results, and basically we just need 2 lines of code here. So finally, what we can compare. So there are just 314 lines of code that we developed, and it's about 1,670 lines in Google reCAPTCHA library. So in reality, without Composer, we have to develop around 2,000 lines of code, or embed in Magento if we'll just take it, copy paste. But still, with Composer, we developed just 314, and it's enough. And basically 340 lines of code, that's around 2-3 hours of development, depending on your speed and performance. And 2,000 lines of code, that's definitely more. That's around like 12-15 hours. So basically, this way, with Composer, we saved like 10-15 hours. And we installed third-party elements, element in Magento using reCAPTCHA sample, and 5 times faster. So our code is light and clear, and happy developers have some time for sport now. And yeah, thank you for attention. Questions? One question?
Yeah, I have a question. Thank you for your presentation. Sergey, what would be your recommendation of verifying the difference between module with version 1.0 and module with version 1.1? So this difference, which we can compare and say that our upgrade is safe to go to production.
I'm not really following what you mean with those version differences. So what's the main?
You will type Composer update,
yeah,
and new version will be updated for
yeah,
the project.
Yeah, that's correct.
And this difference which you will get on top of existing module version.
But yeah, I'm not really following. What's the question itself? So what are you asking about?
The problem is that if I will update a new version, there might be potential backward incompatible changes.
Oh, I see what you mean.
In your, in project, right?
Yeah. So of course there are some minor risks involved in any case. So you need, in general, of course, after you do something, do at least high-level QA, so to make sure that it's still working together and compatible. But yeah, in most cases, it doesn't happen. So according to our experience, everything is going smooth, and really, yeah, you need to pay attention to those things, of course. But I cannot say that they are really so often to happen. So, any other questions? Yeah, thank you very much.